The silence of a home is more than just the absence of sound. It is a feeling that tells you everything you need to know. In a small cottage at the very edge of the whispering woods, the silence had become heavy, like a thick mist that wouldn't lift. Elena woke up before the sun. She didn't need a clock. The coldness of the room was her alarm. Usually, the morning started with the sound of her mother, Martha, moving around the kitchen, the soft clink of a teacup, or the quiet hum of a song. But this morning, there was nothing. Elena's breath came in small white clouds in the freezing air. She walked toward her mother's bed. Martha lay there, her face as pale as the winter moon. Her hands, once strong and protective, were now thin and still. For weeks, a strange fever had been stealing Martha's strength. The doctor from the village had already visited twice, shaking his head each time. "Only a miracle can help her now," he had whispered. But Elena didn't believe in miracles. She only believed in the love she felt for her mother. "Mother?" Elena whispered, leaning closer. Martha's eyes opened slightly, but they were distant, like a memory fading into the night. She tried to speak, but only a dry, fragile sound came from her throat. Elena felt a sharp pain in her heart. She couldn't just sit there. She couldn't watch the fire go out. She grabbed her old wool coat and stepped out into the fog. The village was still asleep, but as she reached the crossroads, she saw a figure. It was an old man, a wanderer with a beard as white as fresh snow and eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 stories. He was leaning on a staff carved from dark wood. "The heart knows where the medicine grows, little one," the wanderer said, his voice like the sound of dry leaves. "Sir, my mother she's very sick," Elena said, her voice trembling. "The village doctor says there is no hope." The old man smiled, and for a moment the fog seemed to glow. "The doctors look at the body, Elena, but life is measured in the heart. Go deep into the whispering woods, find the ancient cedar. Beneath its roots, a single white daisy grows." Elena didn't wait for another word. She turned and ran toward the dark, curling edges of the whispering woods. These woods were not like the ones near the village. Here, the trees were giants, with skin made of rough silver bark. Their branches reached out like long fingers, catching the morning mist. The air smelled of damp earth and old secrets. Every step was a struggle. The ground was covered in thick green moss that sank beneath her feet like a heavy sponge. Her lungs burned from the cold, and her legs felt like lead. But every time she thought about stopping, she saw her mother's pale face in her mind. She heard the weak, strained sound of her breath. After what felt like hours, the forest began to change. The trees became taller, and the air grew strangely warm. In the very center of a small, hidden clearing, she saw it, the ancient cedar. It was the widest tree she had ever seen, its roots twisting into the ground like sleeping dragons. And there, protected by a wall of thick roots, was the flower, a single white daisy, its petals glowing with a soft internal light. Elena fell to her knees. Her hands were shaking so much she could barely reach out. She carefully, gently picked the flower. It felt as light as a feather. She began to count. 1, 2, 3. She counted slowly, her heart beating against her ribs. Each petal was a day. Each petal was another chance to say, "I love you." 18, 19. Elena stopped. She searched the center of the flower with tear-filled eyes. 20. Only 20. 20 days. That was all the time her mother had left. 20 short sunrises, 20 quiet sunsets, and then the silence would return forever. Elena clutched the flower to her chest, her tears falling onto the delicate white petals. Then a thought flickered in her mind. It was a small thought, but it grew until it filled her entire soul. She didn't have to accept what she was told. If 20 petals meant 20 days, what if she could make more? Elena's fingers moved with the speed of a dream. She began to tear the first petal in half, then into 4, then into 8. She didn't stop until each petal was as thin as a single strand of silver silk. As she worked, something strange happened. The flower didn't break. Instead, every small strip she tore grew longer and stronger. The daisy in her hand began to expand, its petals multiplying until there were hundreds, then thousands. It was no longer a simple flower. It was a fluffy, glowing cloud of life. Elena stood up. She carried the flower back through the woods, her heart light and full of fire. When she arrived at the cottage, the wanderer was nowhere to be seen, but the door was open and the house was no longer silent. Martha was sitting by the fire, a soft color in her cheeks. She looked up and smiled, the first real smile Elena had seen in months. "The silence is gone, Elena," she whispered. We often think that time is a fixed thing, that we only have a limited amount of love or energy to give. But as Elena showed us, the heart can multiply even the smallest gift. Your devotion is your power. When you care for someone or something with everything you have, you create your own miracles. You find time where there was none. So, today, don't just count the petals, make them count. Keep practicing, keep listening, and remember, every day is a chance to learn better. See you in the next one. Bye.